Okay guys, Jay Martin here, CEO of Cambridge House. Now here's a crazy fact for you. The music business has digitized incredibly fast, meaning I remember spending 20 bucks for a CD not too long ago. Now I spend $7 a month for more music than I could ever consume on platforms like Spotify. Now, entrepreneurs and innovation always move way faster than regulation and policy. And there's always a lag period where things stop making sense at times. And right now, we're staring that in the face in the music business. Now, here's a crazy data point. 50% of royalties due to artists today, royalties due as a consequence of streaming their tracks on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever. 50% of the royalties owed to artists are never paid out because of the complexity of determining who is owed what money. So there is a sizable amount of cash sitting in the bank accounts of the streaming platforms that they just don't know who to pay or how to pay out to. So this is one very, very strong argument for transitioning the music business to the blockchain. Now, I'm joined in a minute by Imogen Heap, a Grammy Award-winning artist and entrepreneur, leader and innovator who's answering the question, how do we make the music and media business better, more transparent, more fair, make sure the contributors are getting paid what they're owed, etc. And this is a fascinating conversation. So Imogen Heap, I hope you enjoy. Now, as always, if you enjoy my content, there's a pinned comment right beneath this video where you can subscribe to my weekly newsletter. It's free, and every week I put out an article essentially sharing my biggest takeaways, my biggest lessons from conversations just like this and many others. I also talk about anything I'm doing in the market with my cash. So, Imogen Heap, I hope you enjoy.
What I love to do is introduce the right people to the right people, assemble the smartest people I can think of or reach out to carry that conversation, and that's exactly what I've done today.
Please give my panel a round of applause. Welcome.
Okay guys, Jay Martin here, CEO of Cambridge House, and I'm joined right now by Grammy Award-winning recording artist Imogen Heap. Imogen, it's great to see you, and thanks so much for making the time.
Hello, my pleasure. I like the symmetry in our spaces. You've got like an alive plant, and I've got a please water me or take me away from this shady place. You're wearing a very white, crisp shirt, and I'm wearing like my pajamas. But, you know, there is some symmetry in our spaces.
Well, only 2 weeks ago, there was a very sickly looking fiddle leaf back there, which seems to be like the hardest plant to keep alive. I've never done it successfully, and I've gone through 3 at this point.
Is this the one? The kind of
it's a snake plant now. I had to replace it because.
I see, right. Yeah. Snake plants are hardy. They're good. Even my snake plants survive.
They're my kind of plant. Exactly. They just survive despite me.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah.
This one, however, needs a bit more TLC.
Okay, so I'm excited to chat to you, and thanks again for making the time. As I shared prior to hitting record, my ambition with this show is to dive into industries that are poised for disruption that I need a more thorough understanding of. And the music business is, I think, right in that target spot right now. You're one of the few artists who not only has been incredibly outspoken about the need for change, but very proactive in the sense that you're building and providing solutions for the music business right now on the back of blockchain technology, namely. But I want to talk about that, and we'll get there. To help us frame this conversation, though, Imogen, where I would like to start is just kind of like a state of the union, right? So talk to me right now about what's the state of the music business in the sense of why is it in need of disruption for the artists right now?
Okay. Well, there's a couple of things that the music industry really misses. We don't have a unified, agreed data set of works. So that doesn't exist. No complete data set of works. And we don't have a data set of music makers either. We have many different fragmented data stores of information, of IDs, of song credits. We don't have a place which we all agree. So what that means essentially is that every time anybody wants to get paid or credited, everybody's searching all the time. Where is this information? How do we know it's true and correct? How do we know? How do the artists know? The music makers know that information in that data somewhere in that company is correct. We have no way of checking. Every time a payment is made, with one or other of the collection societies or the labels, they have their own data set, and invariably it doesn't match up with somebody else's. So along the way, about 50% of all royalties just get lost, or they go to the wrong people. So there's not a lot of incentive for those people who captured that 50% of lost earnings to, clean up the system.
Find a solution, right?
Yeah. And it's too costly for them to individually, whether it might be like a micro payment of like £1 for a stream, of a song for a month or something for somebody. So whereas
that's a crazy high number. 50% of royalties go allegedly unpaid.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on top of that, there's a huge amount of cost to distributing the payments, to fact checking, all the endless calls that they have with music makers who aren't satisfied with their royalties. That's just a huge amount of time and cost that just gets taken off, at the end as well. So it's really in our interest, the music makers, to have a unified space for all this information to exist that we can all agree on and that we can all see, that we don't have to have many different organizations doing it badly or kind of half well and not sharing that information once they have figured it out to another society. Because although there must be, well, I should know this, but I'm sure there's over 200 collection societies, around the world, and none of them agree with each other.
Right, because there's no unified data set, there's no standard. Okay, right.
Yeah. And then there's the cost of, there's the actual information that kind of floods from the streaming companies or from, radio or from TV or film or wherever the music has been played. That information trickling down to the music maker is really, really lost as well. So not only do we not get the money, but we don't get the data of where the songs are played in the first place, which is just as valuable to be able to decide what you might want to do next, because you can analyze where things are going well and where things aren't. So yeah, these are the core problems. And that's what's exciting about this new technology of distributed ledgers, and, finance, decentralized finance, being able to, essentially be able to transact a play with a pay. There's no need for that not to happen anymore.
Sure.
It's just trying to move these huge organizations, which often have 40 board members and only happen every once in a blue moon, 4 times a year, but they're often chasing the tails and trying to eke out money from existing services who can't find it easy to pay people. So it's always last on the agenda.
Sure.
The needs, which is really just to be able to be prepared. We just need to be prepared for any future service to come up. We might want to innovate in the music space and make it really easy for them to do the right thing. And at the moment, they can't do that. They can only innovate where existing data sets are, which is invariably with the labels. So therefore, it greatly skews their call on how one company might be being paid. They might be paying in advance for the privilege of using those songs to the record label, but that doesn't deem as a royalty. So we don't see that part of it as the music maker, even though it's our music that they're leveraging.
Right. And this is obviously a consequence of the music business being digitized at such a rapid pace, with a focus on distribution over creators' rights, I guess, right? The emphasis has been on getting the product into the hands of the consumer via platforms like Spotify as quickly as possible, which has been massively successful. I mean, the cost of music for people like me has just been one of the major deflationary stories of my lifetime. I used to pay $20 per CD. Now I pay $7 a month for more than I could ever consume.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. Yeah, exactly. The innovations happened from the distribution side, but it hasn't mirrored that for the receiver, for those who make the music. We don't see that speed and agility that you receive as the listener, and I receive as the listener, back to those who contribute.
So talk to me, I want to dive into this 50% a little bit. So at a high level, where are these dollars? So essentially, if I were to recap and tell me if I'm on the mark here, 50% of royalties due to artists never get paid because I suppose the provider, it's too complex to know who it's owed to, right? To determine who's getting which royalty, because now a track can be streamed in 86 different countries with potentially 86 different copyright laws, and how many artists and contributors are due a royalty on each track, and it's very complex. And so where is this? Where are some of these dollars held right now?
Yeah, I imagine quite a lot of it is held with the societies who don't have the data about who to pay. So it's kind of this weird thing that in some societies, I don't know actually all around the world, but for the UK, for example, you would have to pay a fee as a songwriter to join the PRS, which are the only organisation that can receive composition royalties for you in the UK. So you have to sign up. But in order for you to sign up, I think it's £100. I don't actually know. It was free when I signed up when I was like 18. But I think you have to pay a fee. But also you have to have achieved some success. So you have to have had some previous recordings, or you have to have had something of note in order for them to accept you as a member, which means that all of those people, and there's 2 new songs being uploaded every second of every day. And quite a lot of those, I imagine, are, early, release people who haven't maybe released tracks before. So a lot of it goes there, which accumulates to quite a lot. And then beyond that, I suppose it's the identification. So say a song gets played on the radio. So say I was in Iceland. Iceland in Reykjavik. So there's a Reykjavik radio station. They have to write down all the names of all the songs that they've played. And at the end of the year, right at the end of the year, they present this to the Reykjavik Collection Society. And then they have to send that list out to all of the collection societies across the world and go, are any of these yours? And then they might be like, oh, that one's one. And then they send it back, and then they figure out the money, and then they send it over to that organisation. So there's a lot of room for error there.
Huge, yeah, margin for human error in there.
Because if you imagine the amount of radio stations there are in the world. An incomplete list, human error on identifying what goes. Yeah, right, okay. Yeah. And because just the time it takes to notate and write down, if it's not on a digitized system, which quite a lot aren't, they're just like, let's play a record, let's play a record. So that time also just, I suppose quite a lot of it just doesn't get written down because it's not easy. It should be really easy just to be able to pick a track, the identifier to kind of beam out its information and to be able to pay directly whoever is involved in that, including the collection society, perhaps, if they contributed to that system. Okay. But at the moment, it's this really, 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 really long journey of about 2 years sometimes. Okay. Paid for stuff like that.
Okay. So talk to me about the hope then, Imogen, because I know you're very active building the creative paths. I'd love you to talk about what you're up to. And what potential you see in DLT technology to solve this.
Sure. So I, like many musicians, moan about it. And for 20 years I've been like, why is it so complicated? Why can't I just get paid? Why does it take so long? Why don't I know the things that I want to know? And the more digital it got, the more I'd scratching my head going, but surely we should have that, information. It should be getting easier. But these old systems just, aren't keeping up. And there's these huge boards and the incentives of why they would keep up. So I suppose when I heard about blockchain technology through my friend Zoe Keating, she was I was lamenting to her about a song I'd just written that I really loved called Tiny Human. It was about my newborn child. And I had about 78% less time in my life, or maybe 99, a lot less time. And I just didn't have any patience for the stuff that I had just about the patience to do, which was the admin around, making sure that all of the musicians were correctly named and identified, that the correct song lyrics were somewhere, basically creating some kind of web page of information should anyone need to know anything about that song. But ultimately, most of the time, all you see of a credit of a song is the name of the artist and the name of the song. And you don't get any other information. So what I wanted to present when I heard about blockchain was, imagine this future space where everything was integrated. We could all publicly and privately kind of access information that we need, should it be ours to access or change, or we have the permissions to change. So from right at the beginning of the early idea of a song, you might store your lyrics somewhere, but that could go already at a place that is kind of notified. So that Imogen Heap came up with a lyric idea called Tiny Human. At this time, there's some lyrics. Next thing, I update something. Maybe now I've decided on the structure and I've got a little kind of melodic idea or some demo. So I put it up there, off it goes. And imagine then, I mean, I don't have a publisher or a label, but imagine then that it went to the publisher and it's like, Imogen Heap has a new song. And the publisher goes, great. Okay. They've now kind of connected into that song. And then maybe then I need some other musicians to play on that song with me. So then they can directly connect in with their identifiers as the verified music maker that's on that track. It all kind of links into the workstation that you're using in the studio. And then maybe it goes to the label and they kind of like sign it off like, yeah, great. Okay. It gets an ISRC code and off it goes to be distributed to Spotify, blah, 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 wherever. But they're all accessing this information. They can all see this history of events and everything is intact. So that could be anything right up to what gear you were using, what key the song is in, what different versions there might be, whether you can license the music, whether it has stems, whether there are remixes, whether derivative works, all could be linked to this kind of small beginning, like the world of a song, the life of a song. So that's when I heard about blockchain, I just thought, obviously, it can't do that. But what it could do is kind of register the points in time verified by the different creators and people along the way so that you could see who's involved and to check that everyone's credited. And then that in turn could contribute to, a really amazing metadata of text and information that could be used in the discovery of a song or in the curation of songs. So, because what you see, like I said, is this tiny little sliver of information, but underneath it is this 99% of other information that's really, really amazing about the song, the inspiration, maybe who commissioned it, all kinds of things that people would be interested in and would be other ways to discover a song in time. So that's what came to mind when I heard about blockchain and smart contracts, especially this idea that you could, strange concept, just get paid the moment something got played directly. So this is what got me inspired. And then I talked about this idea for a long time. It's not rocket science. It's just like, it feels organically how it should be. That would make the most sense. A system like that, everybody integrated, sharing data, being able to see, who's giving and who's not to the system and, share accordingly. And that you might be able to contribute extra information to that data, and then there's a whole kind of layer of listeners and what they could contribute to the song and how they could potentially get paid for their data that they've given usefully towards that song, like usage information, like it was really good for my run this morning, or I found this really good for yoga, or whatever it might be. Whereas then that would drive other people to find that music because of those interactions. So yeah, that's where it began. And I did lots and lots of talks about this kind of vision of a future music ecosystem. A lot of it fell on deaf ears in the music industry.
Really? I'd imagine not from the artists, but maybe from...
Not from the artists, no. They were like,
artists probably love it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And lots of people would be like, that's a great idea, Imogen. Really great. Well done, you. Goodbye. And then, no kind of engagement. But where I really found the love was with the blockchain community, seeing that there's a need for development here, something they can help with. And that's where I got inspired to just, carry on experimenting and do some hacks and see what we can come up with. And just explore and converse with lots of people and have workshops and design sprints. And we did about 40 of these workshops and design sprints all around the EU and around North America on my last tour to try to gather what could we do now? Like just music makers, what could we do? Because there's lots of companies and new startups in the music and blockchain space, like we're going to solve it for the musicians. We're going to make this like utopian ecosystem where everything has to go in here and everything's going to work. And it's like, well, that's good for that, but that means everything has to go in there, and it doesn't solve all this stuff that's like 99.9% of the music industry as we know it, and all the legacy 100 years of recorded music before it. So how do we create that soft transition from this Web3 space where everything is talking and interacting and transparent and doing right by everyone, and on this side it's very clunky but needs to change, and can't be left behind, because the music industry has been built on these musicians' work.
Sure.
So we decided to create an identity, digital identity space for music makers, so that we could essentially get our data in order, so that we could be a point for future services and existing services to be able to do a KYC on us, so that they know that's the Imogen Heap on this record, and do that link and do that job for them, so that the PRS doesn't have to do that, for example, or the PPL, or because it costs a few £100 every time you want to try and verify a person is who they say they are. So we want to really, really ease that in a huge way. And then on top of that, we want to help music makers to navigate the potentially thousands of new services that could crop up once they have a place to interact with us. Because we're just on the end of an email or a LinkedIn page or a Twitter feed. We're not anywhere organized that we can kind of share APIs with a new service. So I was seeing from one of the early hack weekends that we did, where there were all these new music services, like, that's brilliant. So how do we interface? How do I, as a musician, kind of get into that? And they're like, well, through the label or the publisher or through the collection society, they're creating solutions for the existing system, not trying to kind of think about it on its feet, where the musicians are kind of at the core layer. Whereas it's not intentionally an afterthought. It's just like we can't do that because the musicians, we can't reach them in any bundled fashion.
Right.
So realizing that, we're just like, okay, well, I never wanted to create a platform. I just wanted to go, hey, everyone, what about this? Can we just do this? Let's all get together and make this beautiful space. And then there were these services outside the existing music industry who were doing great things, but there just wasn't a way for them to deal with us directly. So we're just slowly, we have a beta, which is, it's got a couple of thousand users on it. And they're pretty clued up why data is important. And we are slowly but surely developing it with them and pulling in when we can services to start integrating. The main issue is that it's not funded. Well, it's funded by moi, and occasionally funded by a grant if we can get it. But it's been hard, actually, because of Brexit. It's been tough to get grants. And then obviously COVID happened, and that's been even more tough because monies need to go elsewhere. So it's been a struggling time. And Harry Potter, who was my saving grace, because I wrote the music for the Harry Potter play, which was giving me lots of excess income, actually a wage for the first time in my life, that I was like, I can fund this project. So let's fund it, and kind of hired, a bunch of people, which, I can't keep up anymore until the theatre's open again. So that's
right.
So now we're kind of putting it back onto the Creator Passport users, and more engaging with them to help us develop it, and get the core users that we have to really help us define this space from a user perspective, to try and gather more users. But it's the chicken and egg. You need services for users, etc.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, I'm not surprised that you received more support from the DLT community or the blockchain community than you did from the music industry, only because, the blockchain community is founded in some sense in the philosophy that we need to rebuild from the ground up, right? This is not put another layer of tech on this archaic system. We need to destroy and rebuild it, right? And I think we're coming to that tipping point in many industries, right? Music being one. Side note, you mentioned your track Tiny Human. Did you also write the Happy song around the same time?
Actually, I wrote it, I think a year and a half later with a bit of
A year and a half
hindsight.
later. Okay. The reason I ask is I have 3 kids under 5, and
Oh, right.
the
Cool.
Happy song has been on a repeat in my house for
Yay! That's
about a
good.
year. Yeah.
It's like the A and the B side. The A side is like, oh my goodness, nobody told me it would be this hard. And then like 2 years later, oh, bring on the bicycle.
Yeah.
But it was really like wishing that I had a song tool like the Happy song for Scout, because she cried a lot. And it was, I really wish that we could have helped her a bit more. She just had colic, but it was just endless. And what I would have given for sometimes we found something that was like 10 minutes of like a little smile across her face or something.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make one of those for some families out there.
Good for you. Well, we appreciated it. Yeah. Like I said, my boys absolutely love it. Yeah. 100%.
Nice.
The Happy song. Recommend people check it out. Okay, so back to some of this stuff. So, what's it going to take, Imogen, for the community at large to apply? And is this even a good solution to apply pressure to the major platforms like Spotify, and just the collective voice of the artists getting together and saying, applying that pressure that's required to create those big shifts, the mega platforms to create the change, because you're going to have to onboard these providers in some sense.
Yeah. Oh, we have tried. Recently there was an inquiry into streaming in Parliament, and there were like big names up there talking about it, but nothing's been done, nothing's changed, so even at that length, I think really it just has to come down to how can we create the technology so that it just becomes ridiculous not to use it, because it just saves them time and money. They've got a system that kind of works for them. They're not going to go and just revolutionize everything for all the other systems to work as well. Just for their purposes, to be friendly to the music maker. I mean, I really think they're actually doing their best, considering what they have to work with. Okay. So I feel like it's just down to time, development, a good shining light of direction. Music makers are more and more aware of the problem and aware of that there is hope in sight. And we want to kind of create a positive space for people to come even now and just like put down useful information just as time save, admin wise, biography, press image, skill set, projects, websites, identifiers in the music industry, that kind of stuff, just to kind of make it really clear that stuff doesn't exist. Because what you see is all of the innovation, and it does happen very slowly in the music industry, happens around the song, because the song is where the data is. We do have some kind of metadata attached to songs, and you've got rights attached to songs, and they often live with the labels or the publishers, etc. And they're kind of bigger bodies that you can deal with. But imagine if you had organized sets of data from millions of music makers that were really useful to you. You could build so many incredible services, like microservices. You wouldn't need like 10 million users to make a profit to cover the costs that you've had to cover to license the songs in the beginning, and to create those very kind of skewed profit models. You would perhaps kind of be able to lightweight collaborate with a fewer artists, have a smaller space, have more communities, have less cost, with more ways to interact directly with music makers. So I feel like it's really hard to innovate in the music space because there's limited information and song data out there. And if we open that up by becoming the connective tissue to the data that's wrong and fixing where it's right, and hopefully birthing together, because I do think it is going to emerge, because it's really needed, this kind of core layer of music data that people can agree on. But what we need to do that is to empower the hundreds of thousands and literally 10 million more music makers to be able to contribute. Otherwise, it's always going to be flawed, because it's never going to be complete, or it's never going to be nearly complete if you don't let us help do our work, basically. Yeah. Be us in power. So I don't think it's very far away, but I do think it's exciting to be in the place where we could push it forward and make it happen faster. And the thing which I really want to make happen is that creating this kind of baseline tool for a music maker, the Creative Passport, I basically want it to remain free. I want it to be like yours as a birthright. Like, you just get it because you're a musician. There you go. You pay for enough already as it goes. Here's just a really useful tool to start interfacing with what's out there. And then on top of that, there might be like add-ons when you become more, you do have some money and you need to manage things and you need to lessen other bits of admin. Then I don't think the Creative Passport will do that, but there'll be services to do that, to like help you manage your information or do some analysis on your current ecosystem and suggest new services. But imagine being able to go, do you know what? I really need to go and market this new record, or I really need to find a company to like write or to kind of share my new song with, because maybe they'll need a new song for their new beer advert or clothing company or whatever it might be. Or maybe there's some scientists over there at CERN who want to do some sonifications, some data to kind of show what quantum things are happening there. So they might be able to search via a company who knows how to search all this information with the Creative Passport holders, like cross-referencing interests, passions, location, social feeds or social impact, philosophies, who knows what could be interesting, and find like 10 perfect candidates, and reach out to them directly and then find that one that they need. Because actually, at the moment, we're like kind of crowbarring ourselves into this very thin discovery space of an algorithm that decides that our song is going to be more heard than another song, because it's more like this song. And then so it kind of just increases the chances that music is just going to sound more and more like everything else. Whereas how we get jobs, like as a human being, is by somebody going, Imogen, yes, I think she's got a child and I know that she makes music at home. And I wonder if she might be interested in this Cowan Gate C&G baby club thing where there's some scientists from Goldsmiths, to make this song. And they paid me very handsomely. So it's those kind of, that kind of knowledge that people have about me, that because I've existed in, a time where I got some press and I'm known as one of the musicians in blockchain. And so I get asked to do these things. So people, so I get asked to do a talk. But there's lots of other musicians who really know way more about blockchain and way more about NFTs than I do, but they never get asked because nobody knows about them. So it's that trying to create those unique intersections, those points, those discovery points, cross-sectioning all this information that doesn't exist anywhere other than in something like a Creative Passport to help us find those jobs. Because it's those jobs that keep, me being able to pay my mortgage. It's not my streaming income. So we're all kind of like, we must get more money from streaming. But really, I don't know if we're ever going to get that much more money from streaming. What we will get more money from is different ways to interact with our music, whether that's generative and reactive music from jogging apps that come about, or mind well-being, programs that know about our music from some other way, or there's so many possibilities. But at the moment, we're nowhere to be seen or found in any organised fashion. So it's basically opening up the space for the kind of 90% of income that comes to me is by people knowing what I do and when I'm doing it and what I'm capable of, than the 10% of streaming. But all the attention goes to this tiny amount of money that we're getting from streaming. Because there's no understanding of all the possibility that could happen with the new services that could happen if we get our identities in order.
And even as those new services are developed and there's further integration of your songs elsewhere, it's all for naught if it's founded in somewhat broken infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And then it's the minute you have like this kind of integrative web of things for the fan, it's like extremely exciting. You can go on these user journeys from a video to follow the inspiration of my inspirations from this video to this new artist over here, and then discover a saxophonist, and then you go to the Creative Passport, and then you see all these other things that they've done, and there's just like this whole integrated, like, beautiful mycelial connective tissue, because we are everywhere. Like our names are everywhere, but we're not linked. We're not we're just at the end of we're just a bit of text. There's no way to kind of, make it all come to life.
Interesting. Okay. Look, I really appreciate your time, Imogen. It was great picking your brain and hearing the state of the sector from your perspective and what you're up to. So thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jay.
As always, if you enjoyed this content, please hit subscribe. I'd love to have you on the team. And if you want to take the next step and go a bit deeper with my content, I publish a free weekly newsletter every Friday where I debrief my portfolio. I distill the top lessons I've uncovered from the guests I've had on this show every week. And I talk about sectors and industries that I think are poised to move, areas that I'm looking for opportunity, and places that I'm allocating capital. I love writing it. We publish every Friday. The link is right beneath this video. Love to have you join the tribe.